understanding that just because you know what you want doesn't mean that everything's just smooth sailing. Because what happens, and we talked about this at the end of our last series, is that once you decide what you want, what happens is everything that kind of will get in your way kind of shows up. So that's those ghosts of fears. And so that's the overview of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to take a deep breath, because this is such a, the chapter on faith is really an important chapter. And I'm going to touch on a couple things that Sharon Lechter talks about in her new book, Think and Grow Rich for Women. You can see that. Yeah, there you go. And it's not really new stuff. And then I'm going to add my own little spin, because I think that there's still some important things, that those little hidden truths that will help you understand faith in a new way. So what I've been teaching this for very many years. And when I'm teaching and discussing this with a group of people, the thing that comes up most with the chapter on faith is this: people really have a lot of religious beliefs tied to their idea of what faith is. And sometimes that really stops you from moving forward and really owning and understanding and embracing faith as a part of your own personal experience for your life and for your journey towards success. So I'm going to kind of open it up to that kind of idea before we move on, because Sharon Lechter talked about that a lot in her book too, about how the idea of what people are taught about faith really is not what faith is. So and how how society looks at religion has sometimes given the idea of faith kind of a negative connotation for people who are success oriented and who really are ambitious and who really want greater things for themselves, and instead of making it something beautiful that it really is. So taking a deep breath, and I'm going to open up the conversation to, when you started reading this chapter on faith, what was it for you? What were your understanding of faith for yourself? And did you have a shift? And then I'm going to share with you the one shift that I think is really important for women, especially for women, when you're learning to create faith in your life. So
I would like to share.
Awesome, Robin.
Yeah, I had a long period of my life where I was deeply committed in a church. I had a conversion when I was 16, and I spent until my mid-30s very involved. It was a high involvement group, and it wasn't considered a cult because that's easy to get in and hard to get out, and this wasn't like that, but it did have its strong sort of membership elements. And so I had a lot of years of applying faith, and I remember back during those years I actually read Think and Grow Rich and thought it was good. In fact, this is the same copy that I read then, and I have all these pencil markings in it from back then. But this time, as I'm reading it, it's completely different. So of course I've changed, and I am finding, wow, if I had read this, if I had known this, everything would be different. It's like it's an amazing discovery reading this. So I didn't even get through the chapter, but I'm reading like a mind dominated by positive emotions becomes a favorable abode for the state of mind known as faith. And faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. And I'm like, whoa! Faith is the starting point of all accumulation of riches. It means something completely different. Or even faith is the only known antidote for failure. Wow! I'm just amazed. And And this one, faith is the only agency through which the cosmic force of infinite intelligence can be harnessed and used by man. That's the one. And I guess for me, the way I looked at faith before was like, it's something I had to have, which was hard to have, that I had to have or I wouldn't be approved by God. And it's just not any of that. It's that was some kind of fabrication, and something that actually got in my way. Felt like almost impossible. Whereas this is like, just allow it and allow it to be, it's present. So allow myself to experience it, I guess. There. Uh-oh.
Dawn, you're muted.
I was going to say, there's so much passion. I loved reading this the first time. And then I remember getting into it and realizing, oh, this chapter is so much the basic principles. The chapter on faith is really what you need in order to move forward and achieve anything. Because if you don't have that faith, then it's really hard to summon up sometimes the action necessary to move forward when you just don't believe that it's going to happen, or you don't believe in a higher power. And I love it because every time I read it, I get re-inspired. So, Crystal, what are your thoughts?
This is a really good topic because my personal experience, and by the way, I know there's a question happening, but I can hear you really clearly. So, okay. So, except for when you mute yourself, then it's really quiet. Anyway, growing up Catholic, there's always this, put your faith in God, believe in God. But the way that I learned it, I won't say the way they teach it, I'll say the way I understood it, was, you put your faith in some outside something and hope it works. But that's not what faith is. What faith is, trust, not hoping, trusting. And so, you have, if I have faith, then I trust my life is working out. I trust, and I'm not just trusting in an outside force. I'm trusting in God in me. I'm trusting in my own internal connection, my own direct connection with whatever that essence is. For me, it is a God source connection. It could be anything for, whatever works for you, but that to me was the big sort of defining thing. Is it's not faith you throw outside of yourself. It is a very personal, connected level of trust, and it's trusting that life can and will work out.
That's the hidden truth in Think and Grow Rich. So in this chapter, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, because this really is the hidden truth, is that when you read this chapter on faith, if you have a hard time with the word faith, I invite you to replace the word faith with trust. Because when you go into trust, it's such an internal, you're feeling like you're coming into yourself. Like what happens when you trust is a feeling. What happens when you have faith feels like an external, like you said, like an external giving out of something from you. But when you're trusting, you're actually generating a sense of well-being that gives you the ability to receive the answer to the prayer that you're giving out through, your desires, through your thoughts. And trusting in, you brought this up so beautifully, trusting in a higher power and trusting in yourself are the two most important things that you could do for yourself and for your business, for your family, you know, just for your well-being on earth.